been discussed, and that's an evasion of our political responsibility as a human civilization on Earth.
Right.
We need to have a debate, a lively debate, a profound debate on Earth about what we will do to protect the ecology and civilization of Mars from us. But I can confirm that the underground base that I was sent to certainly coheres to the data that was provided in Courtney Brown's remote viewing study, and it also is implicitly corroborative of David Wilcox's claims about a very large contingent of human beings from Earth being up there, because it was a large facility. And let me also add that Bob Dean presented a satellite photograph of a large base on the surface of Mars at the Barcelona Exopolitics Summit that was held earlier this year. And so we now have satellite footage of an extensive base on Mars. Okay, yeah. Now, I decided to roll out the data of life on Mars as an adventure in natural history, but there's also the more deeply political issue of the fact that there is a U.S. presence there, and there are underground bases there. And since the remote viewing data and what the lady from the CIA told me about there being 1 million humanoids underground on Mars, I think we really have to start to ask some of these interstitial questions. Are the underground bases being run jointly by the Martians and Earthians? Or are we establishing bases on Mars that are totally outside their civilization? Mm. Because that would be basically a form of invasion of their planetary integrity.
Yeah.
So there are these really deep political questions as to what's going on there ultimately. I didn't see any activity between Martians and humanoids at that underground base that would indicate that the Martians were involved in that base. So it's quite possible that we've actually established underground facilities there as well without the cooperation or permission of the Martian civilization, and I think that would probably be a cosmic mistake.
How about the teleportation device that is on Mars now? Is that only operational from Earth, meaning that you can't go into this device if you're on the surface of Mars and then go consequently to Earth, or how does that work?
I think I would say yes to what you've just articulated, in the sense that there was no crew there. It was just almost like an abandoned underground facility. There was nobody there. It was like teleporting from Shanghai, to some underground concrete bunker attached to Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles. It was just a big underground room, like a deep underground military base. So there was no guards there, no one to
protect.
There was nobody. There was nobody there. There were the ones that greeted me up outside on the surface near the skull, but there was no mission control or any human presence in that underground location. So I would say yes to your question, which is, it looked like that was an extension of the teleport at the CIA facility in El Segundo, rather than a collaborative Earth-Mars teleportation nexus from which we could infer a collaboration between the two civilizations.
I got you. And in regards to a technical question, I guess in one sense, don't know if you know about this then, but if you have to have a receiving end, so to speak, of the teleportation device here, you have one on Earth where you mainly operate it from, then you have one receiver, so to speak, on Mars. How did they get that material up to Mars? Have they been running a covert Mars program where they've been sending rockets to Mars, or humans I'm talking about now, or have they through the regular like NASA type program been sending stuff up there? Because we know about the rovers, for instance, the Mars exploration rovers that are up there, but that technology is not in accordance at all with what you were talking about here, obviously.
Right. The elevator opened up, and it was in this underground bunker, whatever you want to call it, on the surface of Mars. I don't know where on Mars. But yes, I would guess that they first sent up teams via rockets, and then they had decided, once teleportation was operational by 1967, 68, and once they figured out a way to push a whole room through a vortal tunnel, probably with new materials that are entirely non-metallic and have special properties at the subatomic level based on nanotechnology and so forth, they must have first gone there through conventional rocketry, and then maybe even via the advanced space planes that perhaps was what the three Martians were liaising about at Curtiss-Wright there in 1970.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't have the history of the technical development of this, but my guess would be that we first went there through conventional rocketry and then built that node as an extension of this teleportation capability from that facility in El Segundo. But I just don't know. That none of that information was ever shared with me. It even could have been a situation where the Martians were visiting here to set up that system to get us there faster than rocket ships could take us.
Yeah, because again, if we just touch upon a little bit upon the idea of what NASA, for instance, is doing right now with the rovers and all that stuff, is that just to convince the public that our space program actually isn't more advanced, or what are they doing there overall with these, little robots running around up there when we obviously have this technology? What do you think?
I have been avoiding discussing this because, I grew up in this culture where my dad was an aerospace engineer, and then I had all those experiences with him on Project Pegasus. The teleportation to Mars in 1981 was secret, and I count the U.S. astronauts in my pantheon of heroes. And after all, they were getting on board rockets that could, that had propellant and could clearly blow up and perish, just as the Challenger and then the Columbia did. And so
missiles with a seat in it, yeah.
Yeah, basically a firecracker with a seat on it, right?
Right.
So and a window. But no, so I grew up in that culture where I stated in something I said very early after I revealed what I found up on Mars, that I grew up in that culture of really dreaming about becoming an astronaut, and then then I had the experiences. Whenever there was a space launch, I would run into the house and I was all excited, and then I was dropped in Pegasus and experienced being a chrononaut, and Buzz Aldrin's daughter Jan sang at my sister's wedding in 1980, and that was neat. So I really admire the astronauts, and so I've always had, I guess, somewhat of a psychological block regarding criticizing the space agency and implicitly its astronauts. But we've reached basically a watershed event. We've really crossed the Rubicon here in terms of what will ultimately become, unfortunately, the discreditment of NASA and the space program. And here's how it falls together. After I published my paper, I was subjected to a very hostile attack by Ray Villard, who is the news director for the Hubble Space Telescope. He is a NASA employee. And like 3 or 4 other present or former NASA employees, to include Patricia Phillips, I've even repressed some of these names. I'm trying to think of the other person. Phil Plate attacked me, and others. I started to find that the really vicious disinformation against me was being propagated by the space agency. And you can see that in the 3,000-word hit piece that the news director for the Hubble Space Telescope, Raymond Villard, did, that was published in all places on the Discovery Channel website. I mean, I love the Discovery Channel. I'm a discoverer. And here I saw myself being subjected to the most unfair attack imaginable, because Villard was saying, if Basiago has found these little leprechauns on Mars, why doesn't he publish any evidence of it? Well, hello, that evidence is in my papers. It's in my research monographs that I've written under the Mars logo. My original paper, The Discovery of Life on Mars, has several different high-quality photographs of humanoids on Mars. So he literally took the most sensitive part of my findings and alleged the opposite was the truth. That's not just disinformation. That's lying. And I'll give you some more evidence that really just shocked and amazed me. During the July 20th, 2009 40th anniversary of the lunar landing, astronaut Buzz Aldrin, again, somebody that I grew up admiring because he was one of the adult heroes in the exploration of the cosmos. And I was a young kid growing up in the family of an aerospace engineer who had worked on the ramjet. I had grown up reading, even outside of Pegasus, I had grown up reading books about the astronauts. I had this set of books that you would take these stickers and put them inside the book, when I was educating me about the space program. And then I had all that specialized education in Pegasus about the space program and the time-space program. So here, I found one of my heroes, Buzz Aldrin, on C-SPAN. And he was showing this image of some basically entirely